The officer's flashlight cut through my living room like a blade. Two cops stood in my doorway, hands resting on their belts, eyes scanning the space. And there, frozen on my couch like deer caught in headlights, sat my mother and my brother. The look on their faces? Pure shock. But not because they'd been caught breaking in. No, they were shocked because I wasn't there to save them. My name is Kendra Wolfe. I'm 28 years old, and the woman crying on that couch raised me to believe family always comes first. She taught me to share everything, to never say no, to put everyone else's needs above my own. That lesson almost destroyed me. But on that night, while police read my family their rights in the condo I'd bought with my divorce settlement, I was 800 miles away in a motel room, watching it all happen on my phone. The female officer spoke first. Her voice was calm but firm. "Ma'am, do you have permission to be here?" My mother, Denise, wiped her eyes with shaking hands. "Permission? This is my daughter's place. I don't need permission." The officer glanced at her partner. "Your daughter filed a report 2 weeks ago. Multiple reports, actually. For illegal entry and trespassing." I watched my mother's face crumble on the small screen. She looked so small suddenly. So lost. My brother Caleb wasn't crying. He was furious. He stood up fast, his jaw tight. "This is insane. You can't arrest us for visiting family." The male officer stepped forward slightly. "Sir, I need you to sit back down." But Caleb didn't sit. His voice got louder. "Where's Kendra? Get her on the phone. She'll tell you this is all a mistake." The officer's expression didn't change. "Ms. Wolfe is the one who filed the report. She's made it very clear you don't have permission to be here." That's when it hit them. I could see it in real time. The realization washing over their faces like cold water. I wasn't coming. I wasn't going to walk through that door and apologize and make it all go away like I always did. Denise's crying got louder. Desperate. She's my daughter. She's confused. She's been under so much stress since the divorce. The officer pulled out a notepad. "Do you have keys to this residence?" Silence. Then Caleb spoke. "We have keys because we're family." "That's not illegal." Wrong answer. The officer wrote something down. Entering someone's home without permission, even with a key, is considered trespassing in Ohio. Especially when the homeowner has explicitly told you not to enter. Denise grabbed Caleb's arm like she was drowning. "Call her. Please. There's been a misunderstanding." But the officer shook her head. "Ma'am, Ms. Wolfe has been very clear. She's changed her locks. She's filed documentation. She wants no contact." Those last 3 words hit like a hammer. I zoomed in on my mother's face. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but beneath the tears, I saw something else. Anger. Confusion. And maybe, just maybe, the tiniest flicker of understanding. She'd pushed too far. They both had. For months they'd treated my home like it belonged to them. Like I belonged to them. And I'd warned them. Over and over. But they never believed I'd actually walk away. Nobody ever believes you'll walk away until you do. The officers asked them to leave. No arrests yet. Just a warning this time. But Caleb had a record now. A formal complaint. If they came back, there would be consequences. Real ones. My brother slammed his fist on the arm of my couch as he stood. "This is what family does now? Call the cops on each other." The officer didn't respond. She simply waited by the door. Denise grabbed her purse with trembling hands. Before she left, she looked directly at the camera I'd hidden on the bookshelf. She couldn't have known it was there. But somehow, she looked right at it. Her mouth moved. No sound, but I could read her lips. "Please." That single word. It used to work on me every single time. When I was 12 and she needed rent money. When I was 19 and she needed someone to co-sign a loan. When I was 26 and she needed a place to crash after Dad's pension vanished. Please. The magic word that had controlled me my entire life. Not anymore. I watched them walk out. Watched the door close. Watched the officers linger for a moment, checking the locks, making notes. Then they left too. My condo sat empty. Silent. Exactly as I'd left it. I closed the app on my phone. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I felt nothing but a strange, hollow calm. The kind you feel after surviving something you didn't think you'd survive. Before you judge me, before you think I'm cold or cruel, let me ask you something. Have you ever been so tired that even breathing felt like work? Have you ever loved people so much that it actually hurt? Have you ever given everything you had until there was nothing left and then been asked to give more? If you have, then you understand. If you haven't, then buckle up. Because I'm about to tell you how I got here. And trust me, this story doesn't start with police and cameras and tears. It started much quieter than that. It started with a knock on my door I should have never answered. It started with a key I should have taken back. It started with the word no I should have learned to say years earlier. But I didn't know any of that yet. 6 months before that night, I was a completely different person. I actually believed family meant safety. I believed blood was thicker than water. I believed if you loved people hard enough, they'd eventually stop hurting you. I was wrong about all of it. And that wrongness almost cost me everything. So let me take you back. Back to the beginning. Back to the day I signed the papers on my fresh start. Back to the moment I thought I was finally free. That's where this really begins. That's where everything started falling apart. The day I got my keys, I cried in the parking lot. Happy tears, the kind that surprise you. 20 years old, and I finally had something that was completely mine. The condo was small, just 2 bedrooms in a quiet complex near Dayton. Nothing fancy. Beige carpet, white walls, a kitchen the size of a closet. But it was mine. After 2 years of marriage to a man who made me feel invisible, after sleeping on friends' couches during the separation, after working 2 jobs to save enough for a down payment, I finally had a place where I could breathe. I'd bought it with money from the divorce settlement. My ex-husband kept the house we'd shared, and I took cash instead. Best decision I ever made. Walking away from that house felt like walking out of a cage. I didn't want anything that reminded me of who I'd been with him. That small, quiet version of myself who apologized for existing. I wanted to start over. Build something new. Become someone different. Someone stronger. The first week was heaven. I bought a secondhand couch from a Facebook listing. Found a coffee table at a yard sale. Hung curtains I'd picked out myself, in colors I actually liked. My ex hated blue. Said it was depressing. So I bought blue everything. Blue towels, blue pillows, a blue throw blanket that made me smile every time I saw it. I'd come home from my shift at the hospital, kick off my shoes, and just sit there in the silence. My silence. My space. My rules. Then my mother showed up. I hadn't told anyone my address yet. Hadn't been ready for that conversation. But somehow she found out. Maybe through my aunt. Maybe she'd followed me one day. I never asked. She knocked on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd just gotten home from an overnight shift, exhausted and ready to collapse. But when I opened the door and saw her standing there with grocery bags and that smile she always wore when she wanted something, I let her in. "Baby, this place is perfect," she said, walking straight to my kitchen like she owned it. She started unpacking the bags without asking. Pasta, sauce, bread, coffee. Things I hadn't needed. Things I hadn't asked for. "I thought you could use some staples. You work so hard. Let me help." And I let her. Because that's what I always did. I let her help even when help felt like invasion. Even when help felt like control. She stayed for 3 hours. Reorganized my cabinets. Moved my dishes to different shelves. "Trust me, this makes more sense," she said. I didn't argue. I was too tired to argue. When she finally left, I told myself it was fine. She was just being a mom. Just showing love the only way she knew how. But when I opened my cabinet the next morning looking for coffee, I couldn't find it. She'd moved everything. My own kitchen felt foreign. 2 days later, I came home to find her car in the parking lot again. My stomach dropped. I hadn't invited her. Hadn't even talked to her since her last visit. But when I unlocked my door, there she was. Sitting on my couch. Watching my TV. Eating my food. She smiled when she saw me. "Hey, honey. I hope you don't mind. I used the spare key you gave me." Except I'd never given her a spare key. Never even mentioned having one. "Mom, how did you get in?" She waved her hand like it was nothing. "Oh, I made a copy when you first moved in. Just in case of emergencies." My blood went cold. When did you make a copy? She laughed. Actually laughed. That first day, I brought groceries. I saw your keys on the counter and ran to the hardware store while you were in the shower. Took 20 minutes. You didn't even notice I was gone. She said it like it was clever. Like it was something to be proud of. I should have asked for it back right then. Should have told her it wasn't okay. But I didn't. I just stood there, purse still on my shoulder, trying to find words that wouldn't start a fight. Mom, I need you to call before coming over. Her smile faded. Call? Kendra, I'm your mother. Since when do I need permission to see my own daughter? And there it was. The script I'd heard my entire life. Family doesn't need permission. Family doesn't need boundaries. Family takes what it wants because love means access. The visits got more frequent after that. Twice a week. Then 3 times. Then I'd come home and find evidence she'd been there even when she was gone. The dishwasher running. My laundry folded in ways I didn't fold it. My mail opened and stacked on the kitchen table. She'd go through everything. My bank statements. My medical bills. Even my junk mail. Just trying to help you stay organized, she'd say. But it didn't feel like help. It felt like surveillance. Then my brother started coming too. Caleb was 31, still living with our parents, still pretending he was going to get his life together any day now. He worked part-time at a warehouse, spent his money on video games and beer, and treated our parents' house like a hotel. Now he started treating my place the same way. He'd show up with bags of dirty laundry. The washer at home is broken, he'd say. It was never broken. He just didn't want to pay the laundromat. He'd eat my food without asking, drink my coffee, use my shower, leave wet towels on my bathroom floor. Once I came home to find him asleep in my bed. My bed. When I woke him up, he acted annoyed. Relax, Kendra. I was tired. Your couch is uncomfortable. I told him he couldn't do that. Couldn't just let himself in and take naps in my bed. He looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. It's not a big deal. Stop being weird about it. But it was a big deal. It was my space. My safety. My one place in the world where I was supposed to feel in control. And they were taking it from me piece by piece. I tried to set boundaries. Tried to say no. But every time I did, they'd twist it. Make me the villain. We're just trying to be close to you. Family is supposed to help each other. You've changed since the divorce. You never used to be so cold. That last one stung the most because part of me believed it. Had I changed? Maybe, but not in the way they meant. I'd changed because I had to. Because my marriage taught me what happens when you let people take advantage of your kindness. When you give and give until there's nothing left. My ex had done it with guilt. My family did it with love. But the result was the same. I was disappearing again. Becoming invisible in my own life. And I'd sworn after the divorce that I'd never let that happen again. One morning I called my mother. Asked her directly to give me space. To stop showing up unannounced. To please just respect that I needed privacy. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You know your father lost his pension, right?" My heart sank. What? She sighed, heavy and dramatic. He retired early. Took a settlement. Made some investments that didn't work out. We're struggling, Kendra. We might lose the house. I thought you knew. I thought that's why you weren't charging us for coming over. Charging them? I'd never even thought about charging them. But now she'd planted the seed. Now I was the bad daughter for wanting my own space while they were suffering. Mom, I didn't know about Dad's pension. I'm sorry. But that doesn't mean you can just walk into my home whenever you want. Another long silence. Then her voice changed. Got harder. We raised you. Gave you everything. And now when we need family, you're too busy playing house. The call ended badly. I felt sick for hours afterward. But I didn't back down. I changed my locks that weekend. Spent $200 I didn't really have to install new deadbolts. When Denise found out, she called me 13 times in one day. Left voicemails that started sad and ended angry. Caleb sent text messages calling me selfish. Called me ungrateful. My aunt even got involved, telling me I was breaking my mother's heart. But I held firm. I didn't give them new keys. I told them they had to knock from now on. Had to wait for me to answer. Had to respect my space. It worked for about a week. Then I came home early one Tuesday. I'd left work because of a migraine, couldn't make it through my shift. Pulled into my parking spot at 2 in the afternoon instead of midnight. And I saw my mother's car. My stomach dropped. I walked up to my door. It was locked, but I could hear movement inside. I used my key, opened the door, and there she was, standing in my kitchen, holding a key I'd never given her. How did you get in? My voice shook. She didn't even look guilty. Caleb made a copy before you changed the locks. We're family, Kendra. You can't lock us out. I felt something break inside me in that moment. Not my heart. Something deeper. My ability to pretend this was normal. My ability to make excuses. My ability to keep sacrificing myself for people who saw me as a resource instead of a person. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I just walked to my bedroom, closed the door, and started Googling apartments in other states. Because I finally understood. They weren't going to stop. They were never going to respect me. And if I stayed, they would consume me completely. What happened next? Well, that's when things got really complicated. The measuring tape in my mother's hand should have been my first clue. I came home from my evening shift at the hospital, exhausted and ready for bed. But my bedroom door was closed. I never closed my bedroom door. I lived alone. Why would I? My hand touched the doorknob and I felt my pulse quicken. Someone was inside. I turned the handle slowly and pushed the door open. Denise stood in the middle of my room with a yellow measuring tape stretched between her hands. She was measuring the width of the wall near my closet. When she saw me, she didn't startle. Didn't apologize. She just smiled. That same warm smile that used to make me feel safe as a kid. Now it made my skin crawl. Hey, baby. I didn't hear you come in. I stared at her. At the measuring tape. At my room that suddenly felt violated. What are you doing? I asked. She wrote something in a small notebook. Just taking some measurements. Your dad and I have been talking. This condo has 2 bedrooms and you're only using one. We thought if we moved in with you, we could split costs. Make things easier for everyone. The words hit me like a physical blow. Moved in? With me? In my condo? The place I'd bought specifically to get away? To start over? To finally have something of my own? You want to move in here? I said it slowly, trying to process. She nodded like it was the most natural thing in the world. Just temporarily. Until we get back on our feet. Sell the house, pay off some debt. Maybe a year. 2 at most. A year. 2 years. Of my mother going through my things. My brother eating my food. My father taking over my living room. My space, my sanctuary, my one safe place in the world, gone. Completely gone. No, I said. The word came out harder than I meant it to. Denise's face changed. No, she said it like she'd never heard me use that word before. And honestly, maybe she hadn't. Not directed at her. Not like this. No, I repeated. This is my home. I'm not looking for roommates. She put the measuring tape down on my dresser. Her expression shifted from surprise to something colder. Roommates? Kendra, we're your family. That doesn't mean you can move in without asking. My voice was shaking now, but I kept going. You can't just show up here, measure my walls, and decide you're moving in. That's not how this works. Denise crossed her arms. We already talked to Caleb. He's fine with it. We all figured we'd make it work together. Pool our money. Actually act like a family for once. Pool our money. That phrase stuck in my head. My money. The money I earned working double shifts. The money I saved by skipping meals and wearing the same scrubs until they fell apart. They wanted to pool that. I tried a different approach. Softer. Mom, I understand you're struggling. I do. But I can't have 3 extra people living here. This place is barely big enough for me. She shook her head. You're being dramatic. People used to raise 6 kids in spaces smaller than this. We'll make it work. And there it was again. The dismissal. The refusal to hear me. The assumption that my feelings didn't matter because family was more important. Subscribe now if you've ever been told your boundaries don't matter. That night after she left, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through the conversation over and over. Had I been too harsh? Was I being selfish? My mother's voice played in my head. We raised you. Fed you. Kept a roof over your head. It was true. They had. And now they needed help. Wasn't I supposed to help? Isn't that what good daughters do? But another voice, quieter but growing stronger, asked a different question. At what cost? At the cost of my sanity? My safety? My one chance to rebuild my life? I started paying attention after that. Really paying attention. The next time Denise came over, I listened to her phone conversations. She didn't bother hiding them. I'd be in the kitchen making coffee and she'd be in my living room talking to my father. The second bedroom is smaller, but it'll work for us. Caleb can take the couch until we figure something out. Until we figure something out. Like it was already decided. Like I'd already said yes. Like my home had already become theirs. Caleb confirmed it a few days later. He showed up with a duffel bag and announced he was staying the weekend. Just crashing here while Mom and Dad pack up some stuff. Packing up what stuff? I didn't ask. I was afraid of the answer. He sprawled on my couch eating my chips and told me about the plan. Their plan. The one they'd apparently been working on for months. Dad's already got a buyer interested in the house. Should close in about 6 weeks. Then we'll all move in here together. I never agreed to that, I told him. He laughed. Actually laughed. Kendra, come on. Don't be like that. It's temporary. And honestly, you should be grateful. You really want to live alone forever? That's depressing. Depressing. Living alone in peace was depressing. But having my entire family colonize my space without my consent was totally normal. The logic made my head hurt. I told him he couldn't stay the weekend. Told him he needed to leave. His face hardened. Seriously? You're really going to kick your own brother out? You can't just move in without asking. I stood my ground even though my hands were shaking. He stood up, grabbed his duffel bag, and walked to the door. Before he left, he turned back. You've changed, Kendra. And not in a good way. Mom's right. The divorce made you cold. He left. The door slammed. And I sat down on my couch, in my home, and felt like the villain of my own life. How did that happen? How did protecting my space make me the bad guy? I needed proof. Needed to know if I was crazy or if they were really planning to take over my home without permission. So I did something I'm not proud of. The next time Denise visited, I pretended to leave for work. Drove around the block. Parked a few streets over. Walked back to my building. And I listened at my own door. Listened to my mother on the phone inside my locked condo. The condo she kept getting into no matter how many times I changed the locks. She'll come around, Denise was saying. She always does. She just needs time to adjust to the idea. A pause. No, she doesn't know we've been looking at storage units. I'll tell her once we're moved in. Easier to ask forgiveness than permission. My blood ran cold. Storage units? They were already packing. Already planning. Already deciding my future without me. I walked away before I heard more. My chest felt tight. My vision blurred. This wasn't love. This was something else entirely. That evening I did something I'd never done before. I called a lawyer. Asked about tenant rights. About squatters. About what happens when family moves into your home without permission and refuses to leave. The lawyer was kind but direct. If they establish residency, it becomes very difficult to remove them. Even if they're not on the lease. Even if they're family. Especially if they're family. You'd have to formally evict them. Could take months. Maybe longer. Months. Of living with people who saw me as a doormat. As a tool. As someone who existed to solve their problems. I hung up and sat in my car in the hospital parking lot. My shift started in 10 minutes, but I couldn't move. Couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. This was my life. This was what love looked like in my family. Invasion disguised as care. Control disguised as concern. And I'd been taught my whole life that resisting it made me wrong. Made me broken. Made me cold. But what if they were wrong? What if the cold thing wasn't protecting myself? What if the cold thing was what they were doing to me? I went inside. Worked my shift. Came home at 2 a.m. to find my door unlocked. My door. That I'd locked. That I was certain I'd locked. I walked in cautiously. The lights were off, but I could hear breathing. Someone was in my home. Again. I reached for the light switch. Flipped it on. And there, Sitting at my kitchen table like it was the most natural thing in the world was my father, Ronald. He looked older than I remembered. Thinner. Tired. He held a beer from my fridge. One of the last 3 I'd bought myself as a weekend treat. "Hey, sweetheart," he said. His voice was gentle. "Sad. Your mother said you've been having a hard time with all this. I thought maybe we should talk." I stood frozen in my doorway. My own doorway. In my own home. With my father sitting in my kitchen at 2 in the morning like this was normal. Like this was okay. Like I wasn't seconds away from completely losing my mind. "How did you get in?" I asked. He held up a key. A key I'd never given him. "Caleb gave me his copy. Don't be mad at him. He's just trying to help." Trying to help. That phrase again. Everything they did was helping. Breaking in was helping. Invading my space was helping. Planning my life without asking was helping. And me, setting boundaries, protecting myself, wanting one single thing that was mine? That was being cold. That was being selfish. That was being wrong. "Dad, I need you to leave." My voice barely worked. He stood up slowly. Set the beer down. Walked toward me. For a second I thought he might hug me. Might apologize. Might actually see what they were doing. Instead, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "We'll talk more later. When you're thinking clearly." Then he walked past me. Out my door. Into the night. Leaving me standing there wondering if I was the crazy one after all. But I wasn't. And deep down, beneath all the guilt and the conditioning and the years of being told family comes first, I knew I wasn't. Something had to change. Someone had to stop this. And since they wouldn't, it had to be me. The question was how. How do you escape family? How do you run from the people who know exactly where to find you? How do you disappear when everyone you know will help them track you down? I didn't have answers yet, but I was about to find them. Because 3 days later, something happened that changed everything. Something that made the choice for me. Something I couldn't ignore or excuse or pretend was okay. Want to know what it was? Keep listening. I heard them before I saw them. Laughter. Music. The bass thumping through my front door like a heartbeat. It was almost midnight on a Thursday. I'd just finished a 14-hour shift at the hospital. Double overtime because we were short-staffed. My feet ached. My back screamed. All I wanted was silence and my bed. Instead, I got a party. In my home. Without my permission. Again. My key turned in the lock. The music got louder. I pushed the door open and the smell hit me first. Beer. Cheap cologne. Pizza. My living room looked like a frat house. 3 men I'd never seen before sat on my couch. My couch. Playing video games on my TV. Empty bottles covered my coffee table. Pizza boxes stacked on my kitchen counter. And in the middle of it all, laughing like he owned the place, was Caleb. He saw me and grinned. Didn't apologize. Didn't explain. Just grinned. "Hey sis. You're home early." Early? It was midnight. I'd been at work since 10 in the morning. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Strangers. In my home. Drinking my drinks. Eating my food. Acting like this was completely normal. "What is this?" I asked. My voice came out flat. Emotionless. That's what happens when you're too shocked to feel anything. "Just having a few guys over. Hope you don't mind." Except I did mind. I minded so much I couldn't find words big enough to contain it. One of the strangers looked up from the game. "Hey, you must be Kendra. Caleb talks about you all the time. Nice place. Nice place." My place. That he'd invaded. That Caleb had given him access to like it was his to give. I looked at my brother. Really looked at him. And I saw something I'd been avoiding for months. He didn't see me as a sister. He saw me as a resource. A tool. A thing to use. "Everyone needs to leave," I said. Caleb's grin faded. "What?" "We're not doing anything wrong. Just hanging out." I walked further into my living room. My legs felt shaky, but I kept moving. "You don't live here. You don't have permission to be here. And you definitely don't have permission to invite strangers into my home." One of the guys stood up. He was tall. Broad. He looked annoyed. "Yo, that's harsh. We're just chilling." "I don't care," I said. My voice was getting stronger now. Anger replacing shock. "This is my home. You don't belong here. Leave. The guy looked at Caleb like he was waiting for backup. Caleb stood up too. He wasn't smiling anymore. Kendra, you're being dramatic. It's not a big deal. We'll keep it down. Not a big deal. 3 strangers drinking in my home at midnight wasn't a big deal. Me being uncomfortable in my own space wasn't a big deal. My boundaries, my safety, my peace, none of it was a big deal. Something inside me snapped. Not broke. Snapped. Like a rubber band pulled too tight. Get out, I said. Louder this time. All of you. Now. The strangers looked at each other. Started gathering their stuff. They could feel it. The shift in the air. The moment when someone goes from asking to demanding. But Caleb didn't move. He just stood there staring at me. You're really going to embarrass me like this? In front of my friends. Your friends shouldn't be here. I moved toward the door. Held it open. The 3 strangers filed out, mumbling apologies I didn't want. They left. But Caleb stayed. He walked up close to me. Close enough that I had to look up to meet his eyes. What happened to you? He asked. His voice was quiet, but there was an edge to it. You used to be cool. Used to be family. Now you're just selfish. Selfish. That word. The weapon they all used. The guilt button they pushed every time I tried to protect myself. But this time, it didn't work. This time, I felt something different. Clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. You want to know what happened to me? I asked. I realized that family isn't supposed to feel like this. Family isn't supposed to make you afraid to come home. Family isn't supposed to steal your keys and invade your space and make you feel crazy for wanting privacy. He shook his head. We're not stealing. We're not invading. We're family. Family shares. And there it was. The core belief that justified everything. Family shares. Family doesn't need boundaries. Family takes what it wants because love means unlimited access. I'd heard it so many times I'd almost believed it. Almost let it define me. But standing there, exhausted and angry and finally fed up, I saw it for what it was. A lie. A convenient lie that let them take and take without giving anything back. Get out, I said again. Caleb's jaw tightened. Fine. But when Mom and Dad move in next month, don't think you can pull this attitude. We're family. We stick together. Even when you're acting like this. Next month. He said it so casually. Like it was already decided. Like my entire life had already been rearranged and I just hadn't gotten the memo. He walked past me. Slammed the door. And I stood there in my trashed living room, surrounded by empty bottles and pizza boxes, and I knew. I knew with absolute certainty. If I didn't leave, they would consume me. I spent the rest of that night cleaning, scrubbing, throwing away trash, washing dishes, trying to erase the evidence of the invasion. But I couldn't erase the feeling, the violation, the understanding that no lock, no boundary, no amount of saying no would stop them. They had decided. And in their minds, my decision didn't matter. My feelings didn't matter. I didn't matter. Not as a person. Only as a daughter. A sister. A solution to their problems. At 4 a.m, I sat on my newly cleaned couch and opened my laptop. Started searching. Apartments in other states. Jobs in other cities. Ways to disappear. Ways to start over so completely that they couldn't find me. Couldn't follow me. Couldn't turn my new life into an extension of theirs. If you've ever felt trapped by people who claim to love you, hit subscribe. You'll want to hear what happens next. I made a list. What I needed to do. What I needed to take. What I needed to leave behind. The plan formed slowly at first, then all at once. I'd move in 2 weeks. Tell no one. Not my mother. Not my brother. Not my aunt or my cousins or anyone else who might tip them off. I'd pack 1 box at a time. Hide them in my car trunk. Act normal. Smile. Pretend everything was fine. And then one day, I'd just be gone. But I needed insurance. Something to protect my condo while I was gone. Something to make sure they couldn't move in the moment I left. I researched for hours. Found information on illegal entry. Trespassing. Tenant rights. And I found something else. Something I'd never considered before. Security cameras. Small ones. Hidden ones. Cameras that would record everything. Cameras that would give me proof. Proof I could give to police. Proof that would protect my home even when I wasn't there. I ordered 3 cameras online. Tiny things that looked like electrical outlets and smoke detectors. They arrived 2 days later. I installed them on a Sunday morning when I knew my family wouldn't show up. They always went to church on Sundays. Kept up appearances. Played the perfect family for their friends and neighbors. The cameras were easy to set up. Connected to an app on my phone. I tested them. Watched myself on the small screen walking through my own home. It felt wrong. Invasive. But necessary. The packing started that night. 1 box. Then 2. Then 5. I packed the things I couldn't replace. Photos from before my marriage. My grandmother's jewelry. Documents and certificates. Clothes I actually liked. Everything else could stay. Everything else could be replaced. Or abandoned. I didn't care anymore. I just needed out. Needed freedom. Needed to wake up one morning without wondering who would be waiting in my home when I got there. I opened a new bank account. Transferred money in small amounts so it wouldn't trigger alerts. Changed my direct deposit at work. Told my boss I needed time off for a family emergency. Gave 2 weeks notice at my second job. Found an apartment 3 states away. Paid first and last month's rent with money I'd been saving for a car. The car could wait. Freedom couldn't. Every step of the plan felt like stealing my own life back. And maybe it was. Maybe I'd given so much of myself away that getting it back required theft. Denise called every day that week. Asked how I was doing. If I'd thought more about the move-in plan. If I'd be okay with them bringing some furniture. Each conversation felt like walking through a minefield. One wrong word and she'd know. She'd sense something was off. She'd show up with Caleb and my father, and they'd demand to know what I was planning. So I lied. Told her I was thinking about it. Told her we'd talk more later. Told her everything she wanted to hear. The lying felt awful. But the truth would have felt worse. The truth would have led to fights and guilt trips and manipulation. The truth would have trapped me. So I lied. And I packed. And I counted down the days. 12 more shifts at the hospital. Then 11. Then 10. Each one brought me closer to freedom. Each one reminded me why I had to do this. Why staying was not an option. Why love sometimes means leaving. 3 days before my planned escape, my father called. He never called. My mother called. Caleb texted. But Ronald never reached out. So when I saw his name on my phone, my stomach dropped. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Hey Dad, I said, trying to sound normal. He was quiet for a moment. Then, your mother's worried about you. Says you've been distant lately. Are you okay? Distant. Another word for boundaries. Another way to make my self-protection sound like my fault. I'm fine, I lied. Just busy with work. He sighed. Look, I know this whole moving situation is a lot. But we're family. We figure things out together. Always have. Your mother and I, we raised you to understand that. He wasn't wrong. They had raised me to understand that. Raised me to believe my needs came last. My wants didn't matter. My boundaries were selfish. They'd done a good job. It took 28 years and a divorce to undo their training. I know, Dad. I kept my voice steady. We'll figure it out. Another lie. But he believed it. They all believed it. Because they'd spent my whole life teaching me to put them first. They couldn't imagine I'd actually choose myself. Couldn't fathom that I'd walk away. People never believe you'll walk away until you're already gone. Remember that. Write it down if you have to. Because it might save your life one day like it saved mine. That night I packed my car. Everything that mattered fit in my back seat and trunk. Everything else stayed behind. The furniture. The dishes. The blue curtains I'd been so excited about. They were just things. And things could be replaced. But my sanity couldn't. My peace couldn't. My sense of self couldn't. Those were fragile. Those were rare. Those were worth fighting for. Even if fighting meant running. Even if running meant leaving everything behind. I made one final decision. One last preparation. I sat down at my kitchen table and wrote a letter to the police. Detailed everything. The illegal entries. The copied keys. The threats to move in without permission. The strangers in my home. I included dates. times, names. I printed screenshots of text messages where they admitted to having keys I never gave them. I made copies. Put one in an envelope addressed to the police. Put another in my car. Put a third in my email drafts. Evidence. Protection. Insurance. The letter sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days. Every time I looked at it, I felt sick. This would hurt them. Would embarrass them. Would create consequences they didn't see coming. But what choice did I have? Stay and lose myself? Stay and let them take over my life? Stay and disappear into the role they'd assigned me? No. I chose me. For the first time in my life, I chose me. And if that made me cold? If that made me selfish? If that made me wrong? Then maybe wrong was exactly what I needed to be. The night before I left, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, in my room, in my home, and I memorized the ceiling. The way the streetlight outside cast shadows on the walls. The sound of my neighbor's TV through the thin walls. This place was supposed to be my fresh start. My chance to rebuild. Instead, it became a battleground. But battles end. And tomorrow, mine would be over. Tomorrow, I'd drive away. Tomorrow, I'd be free. Or at least, I'd be trying. And trying was more than I'd done in years. At 4 a.m, I got up. Showered. Got dressed. Made coffee. Walked through my condo one last time. Checked that the cameras were working. Placed the envelope for police on the counter where they couldn't miss it. Took my keys. Walked out. Locked the door behind me. Got in my car. And I drove. I drove as the sun came up. Drove as Dayton disappeared in my rearview mirror. Drove as my phone started ringing. Denise. Caleb. Numbers I didn't recognize. They were calling. They'd noticed. But I didn't answer. I just kept driving. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like I could breathe. The motel was nothing special. Cheap carpet, thin walls, a window that overlooked a parking lot. But it was mine. I'd paid for it with my own money. Nobody knew where I was. Nobody could just walk in. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. 8 full hours. No nightmares. No jolting awake wondering if someone was in my home. Just sleep. Deep, dreamless, peaceful sleep. I woke up at noon feeling like a different person. My phone had 37 missed calls. 23 voicemails. 46 texts. I didn't read them. Didn't listen. I knew what they'd say. Guilt. Anger. Confusion. Demands that I explain. Demands that I come back. Demands that I fix whatever I'd broken. But I hadn't broken anything. I just stopped fixing things that weren't my responsibility to fix. There's a difference. A huge one. One that took me 28 years to understand. I was 3 states away now. Far enough that they couldn't just show up. Far enough that I could start over. I'd found a studio apartment online. Nothing fancy. But it was mine. Signed the lease remotely. Paid with my new bank account they didn't know about. The landlord didn't ask questions. Didn't need references. Just needed first month, last month, and a security deposit. I gave him all 3. Moved in the next day. 400 square feet of safety. Of silence. Of choice. The apartment was empty. No furniture. No dishes. No decorations. I slept on an air mattress the first week. Ate takeout on the floor. Bought a cheap chair from a thrift store. 1 plate. 1 cup. 1 fork. I built my life from nothing. Started over with nothing. And it felt incredible. Every single thing in that space I'd chosen. Every single thing belonged to me because I'd earned it, not because someone had given it to me with strings attached. If this story resonates with you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. 2 weeks after I left, the police showed up at my condo. I watched it happen through the cameras on my phone. Watched them knock. Watched Denise answer like she lived there. Watched the confusion on her face when they asked for her identification. Watched her try to explain that she was my mother, that this was a family matter, that there'd been a misunderstanding. The officers didn't care. They'd received a formal complaint. They had documentation. They had proof of a legal entry. Caleb was charged with criminal trespassing. Not arrested, but charged. He had a court date. A record. Real consequences for the first time in his life. Denise cried. Begged them not to do this to her son. Told them I'd gone crazy, that I wasn't thinking straight, that I'd been under stress since the divorce. The officers listened politely. Then they asked them to leave. Asked them to surrender any keys they had. Warned them not to return without permission. Without my permission. That word felt powerful now. Permission. Something I'd been taught I didn't deserve to require. The voicemails changed after that. Started desperate. Please call us back. We just want to know you're okay. We love you. We're worried. Love. That word they kept using. Like love justified everything. Like love meant ownership. Like love gave them the right to ignore every boundary I'd ever tried to set. But I'd learned something important. Love without respect isn't love. It's control. And control disguised as love is the most dangerous kind. 3 weeks in, my mother found my new number. I don't know how. Maybe she called my old job. Maybe she tracked me through social media. Maybe she hired someone. It doesn't matter. She called at 7 in the morning. I answered without thinking. Her voice hit me like a wave. Kendra. Thank God. Baby, where are you? What happened? Why won't you talk to us? So many questions. All of them missing the point. All of them focused on her confusion instead of my reasons. I needed space, I said. My voice was calm. Steady. I'd practiced this conversation in my head 100 times. I needed to live my own life without you controlling it. She made it sound like I'd stabbed her. Controlling? We were trying to help. We're your family. We love you. There it was again. Love as justification. Love as weapon. Love as the reason I should accept the unacceptable. Mom, you broke into my home repeatedly. You made plans to move in without asking. You gave my key to strangers. That's not love. That's invasion. Silence on the other end. Long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Then, we lost everything. The house. Dad's pension. We had nowhere else to go. You were supposed to help us. Family helps family. And there it was. The core of it all. I was supposed to help. Supposed to sacrifice. Supposed to give up my peace and my space and my sanity because they needed it. Because family meant I didn't get to choose. I'm sorry about the pension, I said. And I meant it. I was sorry. But sorry didn't mean I had to fix it. Sorry. Her voice cracked. You're sorry? You got your brother charged with a crime. You left us stranded. You abandoned your family when we needed you most. And you're sorry. She was crying now. Real tears. Real pain. And part of me, the part they'd trained for 28 years, wanted to apologize. Wanted to go back. Wanted to make it right. But the newer part, the part that was learning to survive, stayed quiet. Stayed firm. I didn't abandon you. I saved myself. There's a difference. She hung up. Didn't say goodbye. Just ended the call. And I sat there in my empty studio apartment, holding my phone, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. I'd chosen me over them. I'd drawn a line and refused to cross back. I'd done the thing I was never supposed to do. And it hurt. God, it hurt. But staying would have hurt more. Staying would have killed the person I was trying to become. Staying would have meant disappearing entirely. At least this hurt had purpose. At least this hurt came from choosing life instead of accepting death by 1,000 small surrenders. Ronald called next. My father. The man who'd sat at my kitchen table at 2 in the morning and told me I wasn't thinking clearly. His voice was different than my mother's. Quieter. Sadder. Kendra, I know you're angry. You have a right to be angry. But we're family. We can work this out. Come home. We'll talk. We'll figure something out together. Home. He kept saying that word like it meant something. But which home? The one I'd bought? The one they'd invaded? Or the one I'd grown up in where I learned my needs didn't matter? I am home, I told him. I'm where I need to be. He sighed. Where is that? Where did you go? Your mother's sick with worry. She can't sleep. Can't eat. She thinks something happened to you. Guilt. The final weapon. Make me responsible for her pain. Make me the villain for protecting myself. Make me wrong for choosing boundaries. It almost worked. Almost. But I'd gotten stronger. 3 weeks of sleeping through the night had given me something I'd lost. Clarity. Strength. The ability to see manipulation for what it was. Dad, I love you. I love Mom. I love Caleb. But I can't be what you need me to be. I can't sacrifice my life to fix yours. I tried. For years I tried. And it almost destroyed me. My voice broke on that last word. I'm not coming back. I'm not giving you my address. I'm not letting you back into my life until you can respect that I'm a person, not a resource. Silence. Then, you'll regret this. Family is all you have. When you're older, when you're alone, you'll understand what you threw away. Maybe he was right. Maybe one day I'd regret it. Maybe I'd be old and alone and wish I'd handled things differently. But I'd rather be alone with my peace than surrounded by people who made me feel invisible. I'd rather regret a choice I made than regret a life I let others live for me. I'd rather die free than live caged. Goodbye, Dad, I said. And I hung up. And I blocked the number. And I sat there feeling the weight of it all. The grief. The relief. The strange mixture of both. The next few months were hard. I won't lie about that. There were days I almost called them back. Days I almost gave in. Days when the loneliness felt bigger than the freedom. But I pushed through. I started therapy. Found a counselor who specialized in family trauma. She taught me words I'd never heard before. Enmeshment. Codependency. Parentification. She taught me that what I'd experienced had a name. That other people had survived it. That healing was possible. That choosing myself wasn't selfish. It was survival. I made new friends. Slowly. Carefully. People who respected boundaries. People who understood that love meant respecting no. People who didn't see kindness as weakness. I worked one job now instead of two. Paid my bills on time. Kept my apartment clean. Lived simply. Lived quietly. Lived in ways that felt foreign and wonderful. I woke up every morning in a space that was mine. Locked my door knowing nobody had a key. Came home to silence instead of invasion. It was everything I'd dreamed of. Everything I'd fought for. 6 months after I left, Caleb sent a letter to my old address. My old landlord forwarded it to me. I almost didn't open it. Almost threw it away. But curiosity won. The letter was short. I'm sorry, it said. I didn't understand what we were doing. I thought family meant we could do whatever we wanted. I was wrong. I hope you're okay wherever you are. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be happy. I read it 3 times. Looked for the catch. The manipulation. The hidden demand. But there wasn't one. Just an apology. Just acknowledgement. Just a small crack in the foundation of lies we'd all been living on. I didn't respond. Maybe I should have. Maybe one day I will. But not yet. Not while the wounds were still healing. Not while I was still learning to trust my own voice. Not while I was still figuring out who I was without them defining me. Forgiveness might come later. Reconciliation might happen eventually. But it would be on my terms. In my time. When I was strong enough to set boundaries and enforce them. When I knew for certain that going back wouldn't mean going under. My mother never apologized. She sent cards instead. Birthday cards. Christmas cards. Thinking of you cards. Each one signed with love, Mom, like those 2 words could erase everything. Like love was magic that fixed broken things without acknowledging they were broken. I kept the cards in a drawer. Didn't throw them away, but didn't display them either. They existed in a space between acceptance and rejection. Just like my feelings. Just like the relationship we might have someday if she ever learned to see me as separate from her. As whole on my own. As worthy of respect. 1 year after I left, I went back to Dayton. Not to see them. Just to see the place. To prove to myself I could. I drove past my old condo. Saw the new tenants' curtains in the windows. Saw someone else's life happening in the space where mine almost ended. I felt nothing. No regret. No longing. Just neutral observation. This was a place I used to live. A chapter that was closed. A version of myself I'd outgrown. I drove to my favorite coffee shop. The one I used to go to after overnight shifts. Ordered the same drink. Sat in the same corner. And I realized I'd done it. I'd survived. I'd escaped. I'd rebuilt. The barista asked if I'd moved away. Said she hadn't seen me in months. I told her I had. Told her I'd started over somewhere else. She smiled and said, "Good for you. Sometimes you have to leave to find yourself." She had no idea how right she was. How accurate those words were. How much they meant coming from a stranger who'd made my coffee but never known my story. Sometimes wisdom comes from unexpected places. Sometimes the truth is simple even when the journey is complicated. Sometimes leaving is the only way to stay alive. If you're watching this and you're in a situation like mine, listen carefully. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because you share blood. You don't owe anyone your peace just because they're struggling. You don't owe anyone your safety just because they call it love. Family is supposed to be refuge, not war. If your family feels like a battle you're always losing, you have permission to retreat. You have permission to protect yourself. You have permission to choose life over loyalty. To choose sanity over obligation. To choose freedom over guilt. It won't be easy. People will judge you. They'll call you cold. They'll say you abandoned your family. They'll tell stories that make you the villain. Let them. Their opinion of you is none of your business. Your job isn't to make them understand. Your job is to survive. To heal. To build a life worth living. And you can't do that while you're drowning in someone else's chaos. You can't save people who are determined to sink. You can only save yourself. And sometimes, that's enough. Sometimes, that's everything. I think about my family sometimes. Wonder how they're doing. If they ever figured things out. If they ever understood why I left. If they ever stopped seeing me as the daughter who owed them everything and started seeing me as the woman who saved herself. Maybe they have. Maybe they haven't. Either way, it's not my responsibility anymore. Their healing is their work. Mine is mine. And I'm doing the work. Every single day, I'm doing the work. I'm 29 now. 1 year older than when I left. But I feel decades wiser. Lifetimes stronger. I have a job I don't hate. An apartment that feels like home. Friends who call before coming over. A life that's small but mine. Completely, entirely, beautifully mine. I don't work 2 jobs anymore. I sleep through the night. I eat meals sitting down. I take walks without looking over my shoulder. These sound like small things. Normal things. But when you've lived in chaos, normal feels like luxury. Peace feels like wealth. Safety feels like winning. The cameras are still in my old condo. Still recording. The new tenant doesn't know they're there. I should probably tell them. Remove them. Let go of that last thread connecting me to that place. But I haven't yet. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's caution. Maybe it's the part of me that still doesn't quite believe I'm free. That still expects my mother to show up at my new door with a copied key and that smile that used to work every time. Healing isn't linear. Trust takes time. And I'm giving myself that time without judgment. The life lesson I learned? It's simple, but it cost me everything to understand. You teach people how to treat you. Every time I let them in without permission, I taught them my boundaries didn't matter. Every time I said yes when I meant no, I taught them my voice wasn't real. Every time I accepted invasion as love, I taught them I didn't deserve respect. I taught them wrong. And then I blamed myself when they acted exactly how I'd trained them to act. That stops now. That stopped the moment I drove away. That stopped when I chose myself. Here's what nobody tells you about walking away from family. It's not the dramatic exit that's hard. It's the quiet mornings after. It's the holidays alone. It's the moments when something good happens and you have nobody to call. It's the birthdays that pass unacknowledged. It's the slow, grinding loneliness of being your own family. But here's what else nobody tells you. That loneliness is cleaner than the chaos. That silence is gentler than the noise. That being alone is safer than being surrounded by people who make you disappear. I chose the loneliness. And most days, I'd choose it again. Does it still hurt? Yes. Will it always hurt? Probably. But pain with purpose is different than pain without it. This pain means I'm alive. Means I chose myself. Means I'm healing instead of hiding. And that's worth everything. Worth the guilt trips I still hear in my head. Worth the family members who think I'm wrong. Worth the cousins who stopped talking to me. Worth the grandmother who cried when she heard. Worth all of it. Because the alternative was disappearing completely. And I'd rather hurt and exist than be comfortable and vanish. If you're still watching, if you've made it this far, I need you to hear this. Your story might be different than mine. Your family might not break into your home. They might use different weapons. Guilt instead of keys. money instead of manipulation, religion instead of force. But if you feel trapped, if you feel invisible, if you feel like you're drowning in someone else's expectations, you have choices. You always have choices. Even when it feels like you don't. Even when everyone tells you you're wrong. Even when walking away feels impossible. Start small. One boundary. One no. One locked door. See what happens. See if the world ends. Spoiler alert? It won't. They'll be upset. They'll push back. They'll tell you you've changed. And they'll be right. You have changed. You've started choosing yourself. You've started believing you matter. You've started understanding that love without respect is just control with better marketing. Keep changing. Keep choosing. Keep maturing. The people who truly love you will adjust. The ones who don't? They'll expose themselves. And that exposure, as painful as it is a gift. Because you can't heal what you can't see. 2 years from now, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know where I'll be. I don't know if I'll reconcile with my family. I don't know if we'll find a way back to each other that doesn't require me to sacrifice myself. I hope we do. I hope they learn. I hope I'm strong enough by then to have them in my life without losing myself in the process. But if that never happens, if this distance becomes permanent, I'll survive that too. Because I've learned the most important lesson. I can survive anything as long as I don't abandon myself. As long as I stay on my own side. As long as I remember that protecting my peace isn't selfish. It's sacred. Kendra Wolfe. 29 years old. Living in a studio apartment 3 states away from the family that almost destroyed her. Working one job. Sleeping through the night. Building a life from nothing. Learning to be her own family. Learning to be enough. It's not the story I thought I'd have. It's not the ending I was taught to want. But it's mine. And for the first time in my life, that's enough. If this story helped you, if it made you think, if it gave you permission to choose yourself, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell me your story. You're not alone. I promise you're not alone. There are thousands of us out there. Walking away. Choosing ourselves. Learning that family is supposed to be safety, not sacrifice. We're building new definitions. New rules. New ways of loving that don't require us to disappear. Join us. You're already brave enough. You just need to take the first step. And remember this. The people who truly love you will respect your boundaries. The people who don't? They'll show you who they really are. Believe them. Choose accordingly. Your life depends on it. Mine did. And I chose me. Finally, beautifully, completely chose me. You can too. I'm proof. This story is proof. Choose you. Always choose you. Because nobody else will if you don't. That's not cynicism. That's survival. That's truth. That's freedom. And freedom? Freedom is worth everything.